Good morning, students. Thank you so much for showing up to class. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you today, but I will be back next week. In lieu of me being here, Mr. Mummert has agreed to sit in for our class, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask him. He's the perfect person to have the answer. For today, I'm going to leave you with a simple exercise that's going to introduce us to using Adobe InDesign. In addition to the exercise, which you can find on the PDF, it's very simple. I kept it to just a few steps that you can follow. I'm also going to give you some notes that cover the basics of where to find things in Adobe Illustrator and how to use the text box and create text, and also to change the colors, which is what we're going to be doing in this exercise. So to get started, here's how to open InDesign. Move your mouse down to the very bottom of the screen and you'll see your little dock pop up. Look for the purple ID icon. When you click on it, it'll bounce a couple of times and it'll take just a few minutes or a few seconds to open up. For most of you, you'll be greeted with this little welcome screen. And this screen gives you the option to open up any recent files that you have or to create a new document or a new type of file. Now, if you don't see this screen, that's totally okay. That just means somebody else may have turned it off in their preferences. To create a new file, go up to File, down to New, and choose Document. And this will bring up our New Document dialog box. Now there's a lot of information here, but we're going to keep it really simple for this particular project. First of all, we're going to keep it just at one page, and our page size is going to be in letter size. Letter is just a normal 8.5 by 11 inches sheet of paper. But check out our width and our height. Right now it's 51p0 or 66p0, at least that's what it is on my computer. By default, one of the measurement systems that graphic designers use is called points and picas, and this is being measured in picas. 51 picas is 8.5 inches, 66 is 11 inches. So if I was to type in 8.5 IN meaning inches, and then click away, it'll automatically convert it from inches to picas. Or if I was to type in any other type of measurement system, it'll change it up as well. So that's totally okay to work with from here. The next thing we need to set are our margins. Our margins need to be 1/2 of an inch, so 0.5 IN, which is exactly the same as 3p0, 3 picas. If I've got my little link checked off, this will put 1/2 an inch in all sides of it. So I'm going to click on here, and it automatically converts it to picas. So if this is what you're seeing, you're totally fine, it's okay. If you see inches, that's okay too. You can follow along in the instructions. Everything else we're going to keep exactly the same and say okay. And this has brought up our new document that we're going to work in. Just so you know, the pink box inside of your page, these are your margins that you set up. Now that won't print off, it's just there to be a guideline to keep everything in place. To find your tools that we're going to use, they're off to the left hand side. Right now I've got it kind of in a tall skinny. I'm going to click this top arrow and this will change it up to a two-sided one. All the tools that we're going to be used can be found inside of this toolbox. For today, we're primarily going to be using our selection tool, this black arrow, and also the type tool, which looks like a big T. You do notice that when you hover over any tool, you get the name of it, so that's a great way of learning it and using these types of tools. Another thing to know is if it's got a little black arrow at the bottom right corner, you can click your mouse and hold the tool, and you can see there's some other related tools underneath it. For instance, there's a type on path tool hiding underneath the type tool. But for today, we're just going to worry about the type tool and the selection tool. Whenever you select a tool, pay attention to what you've got at the top of the screen. These options are called the tool options. And for instance, I've got my type tool selected, so you can see I can change up the type of font that I'm working with. And if I click the up and down arrows, you can see all the different fonts to choose. I can also change the height or the size of it, usually measured in points. We'll talk about what leading does and what these special formattings do. And also towards the center, here's your alignment, things that can be center aligned or justified or right or left aligned as well. If I was to choose another tool, let's say my black arrow, notice that my tool options change up. So pay attention to what tool you're using, because that's going to change up what options you're being given when you have to format whatever you're working on. The final thing to know are your palettes. Now we won't be using these too much, but if you look on usually to the right hand side, you can see different palettes that will show you more information about whatever you're working on. For instance, I can see my swatches. These are different predefined colors that I can pull from. And I can click on any of the names to pull them up if they're hiding behind one another. If you don't see your tools or any of your palettes or anything that I'm showing you today, you can always go up to the Window drop-down menu, and these will list out all of the palettes that we're working with. For instance, there's my tools. If it's got a check mark, that means it's opened and you can find it. So if I wanted to say open up my links palette, I'm going to click on links, and you can see it automatically opened up over here on my right hand side. So finding these are the first step to getting everything set up. Here's the next thing to know. So we're going to be working with our type tool. We're going to be adding type to the document that we're working on. InDesign is used to pull together lots of text and lots of pictures. So if I was to lay out things like a magazine or a newspaper or anything that has multiple pages to it, InDesign is the type of software we would want to know how to use. But it works a little bit like Microsoft Word because you can add text and you can type and format it. But InDesign allows you to have a lot more control over where you place things. So if I wanted to add text, I'm going to choose my type tool, the T. Notice my cursor, this is called an I-bar. And if I need to add text to a page, well, I need to have what's called a text box. I actually have to tell it exactly where and what shape to put the text in. So to create a text box, we'll click and drag. Whoops, I'm going to do that again. Click and drag, there we go. You can see as long as I'm holding down my mouse, a little box will form. And also I get a width and a height just to the right of my cursor. When I let go of my cursor, I get a little blinking icon and I can start typing to fill up this page. Let's type out something. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Simple as that. If I wanted to change up or format anything inside of this text box, I can highlight my text by clicking and dragging over it. And then at the very top, I can choose to either change my font up here. So instead of Minion Pro, what I like about this is that it gives you a little sample preview of what the font will look like before you choose it. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Let's say I like this ATC Pine Heavy. And there it is, changed out from there. If there is another formatting to it, you can see there's a little arrow off to the side for Minion Pro, and this comes in regular, italic, bold, and semi-bold. And so this was a great way of getting more variety from the same font that you have. Whereas ATC Pine, it only comes in heavy and italic. Let's choose Times New Roman since this has a variety to choose from. I'm going to choose regular. If I needed to quickly change the other format, underneath it, I can choose the different samples from there as well. To make it larger, here's my increased font. And you can see I can hit the up and down arrow, and that will make our font a lot larger. Or I can choose some predefined sizes from here as well. Or finally, I can highlight my text, and I can make it type in any specific size that I want. Here's the next thing to notice. No matter what size I make it, it's always going to stay inside of the box that I have created. So if I wanted to change the size of the box, the text will stay inside of it. Choose your selection tool, the black arrow, and with this, I can move my text box around and place it exactly where I need it to be, or I can click on the little white dots located on the edges and the corners of my text box. And when I click and drag, I can rechange the size of that box. So if I need more room, if I need it to fill in a specific space or to cover a specific space, I can click and drag and redefine the size of that box. Additionally, if I was to make the box too small, let's make it so small that all the words can't fit inside of it. Notice a little red plus sign appears at the bottom right-hand corner. This is simply telling you you have what's called overset text. You've got too much text to fit inside of your box. So what I need to do is I need to either make my box bigger or I need to make my text smaller. And that's the basics of placing and moving around your text box on your document. Here's the next thing we'll get into. How do you change colors and how do you do some more formatting of your text? Well, let's choose our type tool. Again, we need to highlight our text in order to make a change of it. With it highlighted, let's play around with some of the other types of formatting. If I wanted to automatically make all of my text capitalized, all caps, that's where these set of T's come in your tool options. And it gives you a kind of a preview of what you would be doing. So for instance, all caps will quickly convert all of the lowercase letters to uppercase. Just below that is small caps, and that'll convert it to uppercase but still smaller. So that's what small caps does. Additionally, you can underline your text or you can give it a strike through. If you click it again, of course, it'll take away whatever formatting that you've added to there as well. This will be important once we start doing the actual project that we're working on. The next set of formatting you can do deals with the amount of space that's in between the characters and the lines that we're working on. Notice that when I type and it adds more and more lines, there's a specific distance between one line and the next line. The distance between two different lines of text is called leading. So if I wanted to increase the amount of space between the quick brown and fox jumped over, I need to increase the leading. So I'm going to highlight it again. Leading can be found right underneath your size changer. With this, notice that if I click the down arrow, it's set to auto. This means that if I change the size of my font, you can see it automatically changes the size of my leading. But watch what happens if I choose a larger number than 63 points. Let's make it 72 points. It jumps down a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more, and you can see I can keep increasing the distance between those two lines. This is what leading does. If I decrease it, let's make it even smaller. Let's make it 50. They're going to get much, much closer together. I can make them so close that they'll actually start overlapping one another. So paying attention to the size of your font and the amount of leading is important. Usually by default, we keep this leading on auto. The next type of spacing that we'll work with is called tracking and kerning. Tracking is the amount of space that's between each of the letters inside of a line. So if I wanted to space these words out, give them much more space, we're going to use this one icon located just on the bottom edge of your tool options. By default it's set to 0, but let's give it something wild. Let's give it 200. 200 will give it 200 points of space in between each letter, and you can see those letters are much, much more spaced out. I can increase it or I can decrease it. And I can get them a lot closer together if I do negative tracking from that. Now this does come in handy if I needed to scrunch in some words to absolutely make them fit into an area. Sometimes you can go overboard with it, or sometimes I need to stretch them out so that they'll fill in more of an area. Related to tracking is something called kerning. And kerning can be found just above the tracking area, and that's what this one is. Kerning allows you to adjust the distance not between all of the letters, but just between two individual letters. To change the kerning, instead of selecting the entire text, just put your cursor between two lines or two letters, and then you can increase or decrease their distance. I'm going to put 200, and you can see that spaces that out in between there. Kerning's rarely used, but it's most often used when you're setting logos or you're setting headline text for things like newspapers or magazines, and you want to get full control over every single letter. It's one of those small nitpicking details that graphic designers love to play around with. The final thing that we're going to work with is the alignment of your text. I'm going to select it again. Alignment can be found towards the middle of your tool options, and you can see these are our most commonly used ones. Right now everything is aligned left, so if I was to keep typing, you can see all the letters line up on the left-hand side of my text box. If I was to choose center, everything lines up along the center of the text box, and naturally if I choose right, everything will be flush to the right of my text box that I'm working with. And this will be true no matter what the size or the shape of your text box is. So if I make it larger or move it around, it's always to the text box that everything is being aligned to. These other type of alignments, justify and justification, these will space out all of your text so that they'll be lined up on both the right and the left-hand side of your page. Pay attention to a lot of novels and books. Most of them will use an alignment where the left and the right-hand side of the page is nice and flush and all the words line up that way. So let's make it much smaller, and you can see now everything is lined up that way. The downside to justified text is that it tends to add a lot more spaces between each of the words, and sometimes it can be difficult to read. In general, I like to keep it just regular old left-hand aligned, and we'll go from that. So that's the basics of formatting your text. Now notice we didn't get into everything that's up here. We'll do these a little bit more in future projects that we'll work on. The next thing we'll need to know is how do you change the colors in InDesign. If I was to highlight the text, notice I've got my text selected. Look at the very top center for these two icons. Right now they've got just a red crossbar going across it, and you can see very faintly a T behind it. This means it's the text color. The top one is the text fill color. So right now, if I was to click on it, I've got none selected because it's just the default black color that we're working with. But if I was to choose another color, you can see these are some predefined colors, such as red. It'll automatically change my text color to red. Additionally, if I was to choose only part of it, I can choose another color, and only that I had selected was then changed up to the other color as well. The other color picker, just below that, is the stroke color. Stroke is the outline of an object or a word that you have. In general, we never change the stroke color, but I'll show you what it does for now. Let's add a yellow stroke around it. Now, maybe a little difficult to see, but you can see a little yellow outline going around all of the letters. I think that's pretty difficult to read, so I'm going to change that back to none, and we'll work with that. Let's also turn this back to just black, and so now we're back to our default. So that's how you can format text. You can change the color of text. What would happen if I needed to change the color of the box that I'm working in? Well, to change the color of the box, choose your selection tool again, the black arrow. Now with this, check out our tool options at the very top. First of all, I've still got my color picker, but I don't have the T that's inside of it. This means I'm filling in the color of the box and not just the text. So if I click the drop-out arrow, these are the predefined. If I was to choose red this time, the color of the box will change up and not the color of the text that's inside of it. And whatever color I choose, that's what it will change to. Additionally, you may notice, look at the very bottom of your toolbox. There's also another color picker. This is the fill color, and hiding behind it, this is the stroke color. If you double click on this stroke, this will bring up a custom color picker, and this will allow you to add any color that you need. So it's not just a predefined color. So let's say I wanted this particular shade of lime green. If I wanted to save it, I can add it to my CMYK swatches, and it'll also add it over here as well. So if I needed to create several different colors, I can automatically add those into there. And when I say OK, check out our color swatches up here. Here they are added down here at the very bottom. So if you need a custom color, simply double click on the fill color or the stroke color over here. Or if you need to pick a predefined color, you can find those at the drop-down menu up here as well. One last thing to know about choosing a color that'll help you out. Let's go back down to the very bottom of our toolbox. Right now, I've got the fill color selected, and you can see just below it, I've got a little box that's highlighted. If I choose the T, this will automatically choose the text that may be inside of the box that I have selected. So I've got this box, and you can see it's pink. If I choose T, the T pulls up the black of the text color. I can then pick up my color picker and automatically choose the color that I want from there and change up the text of the text that's inside the box without actually having to choose my type tool. So let's have a look at today's exercise. The first thing we're going to do is to create a new document that's going to be letter-sized paper and have half-inch margins on all the sides. Once we get it set up, we're going to use our type tool to draw a series of text boxes inside of these margins. Inside of each of the text boxes, I want you to type out each of these paragraphs. You don't have to type the bullet point or the dash, just mainly this text. So let's do this first one together. I've got my document already created, set up in here. You can see my margins are on the inside. Choose your type tool, then click and drag and make a text box inside of it. Remember, if you need to move it around, you can use your selection tool, the black arrow, and readjust the size and the placement of it. Once I've got it created, let's type out that text. Set this. Alright, so I've got this already typed out. The next thing I need to do is to format this text and the box to fit whatever styling it suggests. So if I was to highlight this text, I can read it. So set this type to be centered. So it needs to be center alignment. I know my alignment is found up here. Here's centered. It needs to be at the top of the page, already is, using the font Euro style and set to 20-point size. So I'm going to go over here, click the down arrow, and find the font Euro style. It should be on your computer. CD, notice they are in alphabetical order. There it is, Euro style. I'll make it regular. And it needs to be 20-point size, which is up here. I don't see it in the predefined one, so I'm going to type in 20, much larger. Next, I need to set my leading to 18 points. There's 18. And the box color needs to be light green and the text color needs to be blue. To change the box color, I'm going to choose my selection tool. And then I'm going to double click on my fill color. This will bring up my color picker. Let's choose a light green, make it a little bit lighter. Say OK. And my text color needs to be blue. So I'm going to choose my type tool, highlight it again, and let's choose a dark blue, this time from our predefined swatches. That looks good right there. I know it looks funky, but this is what I'm looking for. Once I've finished formatting this one, I'm going to adjust the size of my text box so it doesn't take up too much room. I'm just going to get rid of that bottom space. Then go on and format and do the next one. Choose your type tool, make another text box. Let's make it go all the way from one margin to the next margin. Type out this sentence and then format this sentence. Once you're done, all of these should be able to fit onto your page. You may need to move some of them around to get them to fit, but everything will work out and fit onto your page once you've finished. Once you are done, save this and you are free to go for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask Mr. Mummert, or you can email me and ask me at the beginning of next class.